Okay, so we've cracked it. So hi everybody, my name's John Franklin. I'm head of the safety promotion team here at EASA in Cologne in Germany, and welcome to our final session of our EASA Safety Week on safety leadership. We've got a really great session lined up. Just before we start and I introduce our panelists and really get things going, I'm just going to give you a quick 2 minutes of logistics and hopefully a bit of information to help everything run as smoothly as possible. Hopefully you recognize our Safety Week characters here that we have from our Conversation Aviation magazine. And this week, we're really focusing on the topic of safety, not just being something we say safety is a #1 priority, but really being a core value at the heart of our industry. So this is the agenda that we've had throughout the week. So we've had 7 sessions up till now. All of the sessions except the ATM ANS are available already on the Together for Safety YouTube channel if you want to watch it back. We have to do some editing of the ATM one. Just we had a problem, the YouTube live stream failed. So we're editing the raw version and we'll get that up in the next day or so. Also then with all the presentations and all of the different material that came out from the Safety Week, everything will go on the EASA event page, and we've also got a page on our AirOps community site. Just also to bring to your attention, we have an event, obviously the topic of conflict zone risks and in a very challenging operating environment at the moment. We have a World Overflight Risk Conference that we're co-hosting in Warsaw from the 2nd to the 4th of July. It's an in-person event. If you want to find out more, you can go to the EASA event pages on the EASA website. Everything's in chronological order, and you should be able to find the event. All the registration information is there. And then in terms of the logistics for this session, so as I say, we are recording it. Everything, as soon as we press stop, because we're YouTube live streaming, it will already be available in the YouTube, but we'll also probably do a bit of editing and make things a bit tidier at the front and the end and put it on the channel later. You can follow our AirOps community, as I say, and also our Conversation Aviation magazine. We've got the next issue coming out a little bit later in May with some great articles from all sorts of different people, including from the team at IATA, who are joining us as one of the panelists on the discussion here. And then in terms of questions and interaction, we'd love to try and get some questions going and get your thoughts and feed some questions to our panelists on this topic. So what you can do, if you're in the WebEx, you can go to the bottom right-hand corner and you should be able to find apps and then Slido, and you can ask questions there in the Slido there directly in WebEx. If you're anywhere else or you have a problem with being able to do it in Slido, so if you're in the YouTube, then you can go to Slido online or the Slido app, so sli.do, and then hashtag SW2024, and then there's a passcode there. What I'll do is I'll put that information in the Slido chat and the YouTube live stream chat so you can see things there. You can also put something in the YouTube chat as well if you want, and we monitor it throughout the session, and hopefully we'll have a really good discussion. We had some preparation discussions, and even just in that we got things got some really interesting stuff going. So without further ado, we'll get into this discussion, and particularly as I say, the session's all about safety leadership and how we build organizations as part of our system to be as safe as possible, whether that's this summer or throughout as part of normal daily operations, whatever time of year it is. So we've got a great panel, so I'm going to ask my panelists to introduce themselves and just talk a little bit about themselves briefly, what they do, etc. So Dorte, if I could start with you.
Thank you for the invitation, John. I'm Dorte Nygaard. I'm Head of Compliance Monitoring and Safety Management at Copenhagen Airports. I also have the great pleasure of participating in the safety management panel, ICAO, and do take part of ACI's safety committees as well.
Fantastic, thanks very much. And next, Frida, could you introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, good morning, nice to be with you. My name is Frida Pétursdóttir, and I'm also working within safety and compliance for Iceland Air here in Iceland, where we're focusing on our integrated management system to try to take now the whole organization into our safety management and compliance monitoring program. But I'm looking forward to the discussions today.
Oh, excuse me a second. I have some strange feedback repeating the sound, so I'm just trying to figure out a second where that's coming from. I don't know. Oh, hold on a second. This is new. Hold on a second. I have no idea where this echo comes from. Does everybody else, can I ask the panelists, do you hear an echo or is it just me here? So it's just me. That's very strange. Oh. Oh, golly. Do you hear that echo repeated back through my microphone? No.
Nothing at all, John.
That's the strangest thing. Okay, hopefully I'll manage to figure out what's happening. Okay, Mark, could you introduce yourself and I'll continue to try and figure this out?
Yes, certainly. Hello, everyone. Mark Searle, Global Director of Safety at IATA, responsible for our safety risk, our operational safety, our EASA program, and our quality assurance functions within the International Air Transport Association.
Fantastic, thanks. And Yogesh, maybe you can go next.
Thanks, John. My name is Yogesh Parekh, Senior Vice President for Operational Risk. And my role is to lead, direct, and support our teams in preventing and reducing the likelihood of incidents occurring.
Okay, I'm going to keep continuing trying to, it's the funniest feeling. I'm going to continue to try and figure this out. So, so as a starting point, the first thing we were looking at is what the strategic challenges are that we have within the system. And maybe I'll go in reverse order now. So Yogesh, maybe I come to you first. And can you tell me a little bit about, in terms of the kind of bigger strategic challenges, what are the big things that you're facing as an organization at the moment?
I think the workforce has changed. There's a lot of challenges that we see, particularly with people wanting more flexible hours. So we have to be very strong on our planning, and we have to try and also mitigate the risk of fatigue. Having demanding schedules, long hours can lead to a lot of fatigue that could impair judgment and reaction time. So it not only has an effect on our operational performance, but people also can make errors, and then it can turn into accidents. The other areas that we are constantly monitoring on and making sure is our training and skill levels. I think what we see today is because of the turnover of staff in some locations, the quality of training has to be top notch, has to make sure that we can keep the messaging simple, easy to understand, and more importantly, memorable. So when they are faced with problems, then they know what to do. And then the last area that we think is really, really important is the engagement. We've got to make sure that we keep the staff engaged. People want to know what's happening. People want to be kept informed. And communication is like breakdowns. Communication breakdowns are like turbulence in the sky. So they can really disrupt operations. For us, it's really important that we keep our teams in the loop. They know what's happening, and they are part of the solution in helping us to deliver a safe and secure service.
I think it's one of the things, having been involved from outside in your Morse Week and all your promotion, I think that staff engagement you do at Menzies is really exciting, kind of one of the key things I've seen. And yeah, it must be a continued challenge, I guess, particularly on a global scale like you are with such a large organization, and standardizing the training and all of those things must be a huge challenge.
I think for us, the message is to keep it simple. The cognitive mind has a capacity. So keeping messaging simple, easy to understand is key to us. And we're looking at innovative ways of trying getting that message not only sent, but message received. So for example, one of the initiatives that we've taken on, we've been trialing this now for a year and a half, is we're using more gamification rather than read and sign. What we find with gamification is when we do have a message that we want to send, whether it's a safety alert or an important operational process, to gamify it, people find themselves playing against themselves. So our app at the present moment allows people to watch a video, and then they answer a series of questions, but they're timed on it. And what happens is they appear on a leaderboard. They can play against their peers, not only in their station, but against others across the Menzies network. And it really does engage people. We find people keep repeating the game. And the more time they keep repeating the game, the higher the muscle memory. So the message becomes stuck in their mind. And for us, most of our incidents happen out of hours. Happen when they're faced with a problem. 99.9% flights go and there isn't an issue, but it's when there's an abnormality, people are then faced with a situation. So helping them, making sure that the message is simple, easy to understand, and more importantly, memorable, helps them then to make the right choice, so that they can continue providing that safe service.
Yeah, that makes sense. Fantastic. And Mark, maybe if I come to you next, from your side, from EASA, with such a broad membership, what kind of big strategic challenges are your members worried about and thinking about at the moment?
Yeah, I sort of chime in with a lot of what Yogesh has said, because the issues around the supply chain are sort of at the heart of a lot of our discussions. When we're talking about supply chain, I think you can put that into two categories. You can put it into the physical category of actual equipment, pieces of kit that you need on aircraft and around the whole of the environment to keep the operation running smoothly, but also human capital. And as has been highlighted, I mean, the people who have left the aviation industry during COVID has taken a huge chunk out of the cultural sort of integrity of the industry. And so how do we ensure that that culture, which doesn't get built overnight, continues to grow and is sustained, and people are looking to do the right thing? And where we've really sort of tried to focus on this over the last 6 months is around our safety leadership culture, and in particular our safety leadership charter, which we're pleased with. In just 6 months, we've had 20% of the IATA membership sign up to at CEO level, because they believe that there's never a moment where you can not continue to affirm how critical safety is within the operation. I think when you're looking at some of the technical issues that we're dealing with, we have seen a number of challenges around aircraft parts that are grounding aircraft, and we're not too sure how this is being resolved in a very transparent and systemic way. So I mean, we're trying to ensure that actually we have those conversations with original equipment manufacturers to make sure that we understand where their constraints in the supply chain are, and how that has an impact on the airlines, for example, maybe carrying more defects within their minimum equipment list than they would normally, because actually there just isn't the kit out there to be able to sort of repair things as and when is required. I think the other key thing around so current challenges is the environment, and I'm sure we'll probably come on to this a little bit more. I don't think there's anybody out there who doesn't want to continue to deliver a more greener version of the industry and to work towards that net zero by 2050, but you can't do that at the detriment of safety. So when we start to look at instrument departures and instrument arrivals into airports, which seem to be sort of designed by people who probably haven't spent much time at the front end of an aircraft, one needs to sort of make sure that you get the balance, to make sure that actually the processes and procedures and the sort of requirements around particular airports that are being designed actually have that person in the middle of a system to ensure that actually they are flyable and flyable safety. And I think the other thing is the political instability in the world. For example, we're seeing with closure of airspace in the east of Europe, is that we're funneling a lot more aircraft around sort of the Turkish corner into the Middle East. We're currently seeing a lot of impacts around GNSS interference and spoofing in that area. So equipping safety critical personnel to deal with the issues that they may need to have to address now that they're going through a part of the world that they're not used to. Another sort of thing that we were looking at the other day is not many people have actually flown over the Himalayas, but actually if you have a depressurization in the Himalayas, then you don't have much space to play with when you're trying to get the aircraft down to sort of 10,000 feet so it's breathable for the passengers. So it's about those sort of strategies that you need to sort of bring into your own sort of skill set because you're operating in a different environment. So yeah, the supply chain environment and political sort of situations that we're dealing with at the moment are challenging and will continue to be so, I sense, for some time to come.
Thanks for those insights, Mark. I think that's one of the things we see. I think we've seen particularly post-COVID is I guess we were all hoping for something a bit more static, and we've kind of reached this situation where technologies now with AI and things like that moving so quickly, and we've got the environmental challenges, and the world suddenly become a lot more unstable. So it's like we're almost being hit on all fronts. And I think this is where particularly it starts to test the resilience of organizations, having come out, having survived COVID almost and come out the other end. It's how we bring those together and feed that through. Now, Frida, maybe I come to you next from your side. As an operator, with quite a diverse network and lots of things going on, lots of change. You've recently got a new fleet or introducing a new fleet of aircraft as well. What kind of strategic challenges are you seeing at an operational level?
I think on our side, I hate to bring it back to COVID again, but there was a massive change, of course, during COVID. And we are on a 86-year-old airline now. And of course, a culture is built over this whole time period. It's a long path to build a good safety culture, a good culture within a company, of course. And in COVID, we unfortunately had to lay a lot of staff, and some of them didn't come back afterwards. Some came back after a hard time with our personal lives. And this is the main challenge to get back the passion, I think, to make it stable, to get the trust back, and to get people really comfortable, to not think that, okay, this might happen any moment because of the world problem, that we are facing on top of everything. To show some stability, to show the importance of every single staff member, that they really play a role, to take on the sentence that no chain is stronger than its weakest link. We really have to drill down the mindset that every single person is important, and we do it by talking about safety. It's not granted. It's it's not luck that we have a good safety record within aviation. It's a massive amount of work by people every single day with all the procedures, training, design, certification, the good work at the EASA, of course, as well, and the other authorities that come together with this package. And this is what we are trying to promote through staff. They are sitting on incredibly valued information for the company. And it's of highest importance to get this information through the occurrence reports, through dialogues over the coffee machine, to spot the possible outliers, or what we're doing great, what is really working, and what we have to do more of. And this is now the strategy to increase how we talk about safety, or to increase our dialogue on safety. And I think this is what is delivering, is moving us into the same culture that we had before as well.
Yeah, I think it's one of the challenges, isn't it? It's sort of, we've seen this a lot. In fact, it's interesting actually, the first question we got, and I'll come back to the questions later on, but one of the big challenges, I know Mark, we've talked a little bit about this as well, is that ultimately, how do we regain the trust of the workforce and then create organizations people want to come and actually work for and be part of for the long term, and they see that there's a long-term future in aviation and with the organization that they're with. It's it's kind of a continued challenge. And Dorte, maybe I come to you next. From your side, the safety of what happens on your airport lies in the hands of so many people. So and say you have there's a slightly additional challenge there, that you have to bring so many people together. But what kind of challenges and situations are you facing there in Copenhagen?
There you said it, John. It's when we look at the airport community, it consists of so many different players from so many different companies. So bearing in mind that all companies have their own safety culture, it's all about having the orchestra perform in a nice way together now that we are facing busy and constrained situations out on the ramp. So what we pay a lot of attention to is making it very simple and easily to understand to all of our actors out on the ramp. What is it that we expect from them? So we talk a lot about rampmanship, this thing about understanding each other's different areas of responsibility, allowing space for each other so that we avoid those situations where we face a too stressful environment, where we increase the risk of damaging aircraft, to be concrete on an example. We have been recruiting a lot of volunteer safety ambassadors within our airport community. So we've asked our community, would you like to be a role model of safety culture? And we've really been impressed by the response that we have had. So in this way, we have assistance from many colleagues from many different companies. Every day during their daily work activities, they lead the way for others. We also have a community of many new players that, of course, need to understand and learn the environment that they will now be working in. So looking to the side, learning from ambassadors across different companies, this is one of the keys that we found extremely efficient, having the orchestra play nice music together in our airport community. So yeah, that would be the short-term challenges for us preparing for summer, allowing everyone to be finding space for each other out there on the ramp, but of course also internally. We have a lot of different units within Copenhagen Airport Company that will need to play a very important role in leading the way of a positive safety culture. So a lot of training came first. Now it's time to show that we are ready for summer, and I would say it lies in the hands of so many people to lift that responsibility, and having them all understand exactly what they should do. This is where we will see the results during summer.
And in that context, so what do you, as an organization, so obviously there's the day-to-day operations and how people act and the things they do every day, but as a leadership team at the airport, what are the key things that you do that help kind of set that culture and really kind of ingrain it and embed it in everything that people do every day?
First of all, we talk a lot about safety. So safety is a topic on all our our meetings, we talk about which culture would we like to see performed. We talk about safety responsibility, and we train our safety leaders thoroughly so that they know exactly what they are responsible for. We also measure a lot of this based on nice safety data. So we collect data from so many different touch points during the operation, but also from a management perspective. How well do we reduce risk? How well do we work with our compliance culture to not allow drifts that would further down the road lead to failure maybe? So we evaluate our performance. We give each other feedback when it comes to our ability of living the just culture principles, creating a psychological safe environment for all of us.
It's interesting that to see how that actually looks in practice. And I know people who work at your airport, and it's so exciting to hear the story, the things they say about all of these fantastic things that are being built. And maybe Yogesh, maybe I come back to you quickly now. Is obviously you have lots of new staff joining, particularly in this period up to the summer as operations increase. How do you do that in terms of setting the tone across the organization at such a with so many locations and I guess tens of thousands or thousands certainly of new staff turning over the course of a year? How do you ingrain that safety culture throughout the organization? What are the key building blocks for you?
Well, for us, all our station managers make a pledge, but they don't just make a pledge, they actually try to live it, and they make it, it's a 10-point pledge which they personally sign and post it. So they let everyone know this is what they can expect when they come and work for us. For us, it's about getting the basics right. We want to treat our employees like we treat our customers. They get consistent, fair, and transparent service. So it's really, really important in making sure that they get the uniform on day one, making sure there's regular dialogue, communication, making sure that they receive their rosters so that they can plan ahead. People who work shift work, and I'm sure all of us on this call at some point in our careers have worked shift patterns. It's important that you also want to make sure you look after your family. So having a roster in advance so that you can plan your life is really, really important. I think it's also finding mechanisms to try and make it easier and swifter in ensuring that you get your holidays. So once you put your holiday request in, there's a mechanism that you can expect to see to get a reply and accounted for. And life happens. People have to make adjustments. So we want to make sure where people can take shift swaps. There's we try to action them ASAP so that they can then make arrangements for their family. And let's not forget, no matter what industry you're in, the cost of living crisis is high. So getting to work in some of our countries, I think it can cost up to about 20% of their salary just to use the transport services to get into the airport. So we have to find ways of encouraging people, finding ways where we can car share or lay on transport services to get them in and out. I think it's also important that we find a way of looking at our workforce. So we put our own target for ourselves to have more women in working on the ramp. And we've seen a lot of traction, and this drives then the business to find more innovative ways of allowing them to come into work. So it is about creating a framework for our managers to work in, setting targets so that we can measure ourselves and keep pushing the bar, and then keeping it simple. I think keeping it simple, fair, and transparent is our approach.
I really love what you explained there, particularly. I saw earlier in the week the Aeronautical Society had published a new paper on psychological health and safety, and what you were describing there is kind of the embodiment of that, is thinking beyond, how can we as an organization help our staff to put their efforts and their focus on work when they're here and support them in all the other things. And it's interesting how that, and I guess that must be even more challenging in so many different locations across the world. And by making it simple, it really helps that to happen and turn into a reality every day.
I think I was asked this question, what's our key objective? Our key objective is people, we want people to come into work, enjoy their job, and go home not only safe but better. And that's the key. They've got to find some form of purpose. They've got to find some form of fulfillment, that they want to come back. And having a workplace where you feel supported, your colleagues support you, is really, really key. And we have our Morse code. MENS is operating, so it's operating to procedures designed to keep you safe. So we really do encourage that. We want people to feel, they can, if they see something, they say something. So we want people to act responsibly. We want people to work safely. So people not only look after their safety, but the safety of their colleagues and their customers. So it's creating that working culture. But more importantly, it's the team spirit. So it's working effectively as one team. And if you follow that code, no matter where you are. Today I'm in Nairobi, and I was meeting the teams on the ramp, in our passenger terminals, in our cargo terminals, and you can see that theme run through their own local small teams, working with each other. And if you spend 8 hours working with someone day in, day out, you get to know them. So fostering a good culture, working team spirit is important. So that's how we try and allow people to come to work, enjoy their job, and go home safely.
I think that sums it up really well. And actually, it's really interesting, Mark. I'll come to you next and talk to you about a little bit about your safety leadership program. But interestingly, we have a comment, a question. It's more of a comment than a question in the chat, that even though they will find one of the people watching says they find all the organizational management discussion interesting, but they weren't sure, they were missing what the connection is with safety leadership. And I think certainly for me, that this is the heart of the connection. It's how the organization sets their staff up for success, as you just described, Yogesh. And Mark, maybe you could talk a bit about your safety leadership charter and kind of what that connection is between how the organization sets the framework and the conditions for success and safe success of the organization.
Thanks, John. And yeah, I love the question or the comment, because I think this is the challenge, is that we all think we know what these terms mean, but actually one's own frame of reference may be very different from another. And I guess, working as Yogesh did with an international organization, where actually things mean very different things in different parts of the world, trying to get that alignment is very much through leadership. You can't sort of set the direction of an organization or set the direction of an initiative, et cetera, unless you get everybody to sort of buy into what you're trying to deliver and what those outcomes are you're looking to sort of provide to the industry at the end. I mean, we've had this huge discussion around our safety leadership charter. So, just a bit of background is that post-COVID, we were very, very clear from our members and other stakeholders that with this loss of people across the whole of the industry and how that had diluted parts of our culture, there was a way that we needed to sort of build that up again, you know, and with that building up of safety leadership, and understanding that everybody had the same understanding of what values that included, we could sort of ensure that operational resilience was stronger in the future, because everybody is aligned. And so we developed a new IATA safety strategy, of which one of the pillars is safety leadership. And we spoke to our airlines. You know, we've got just under 300 airline members around the world, and so, you know, it was great to be able to sort of say this isn't a European lens on the issue of safety leadership and safety culture, or an American. This is sort of out in China. This is down in Australia, etc., etc. So how do we sort of bring together a number of principles that everybody can buy into? And so that's where we got our guiding principles. And I won't read them all, but I mean, from a leadership perspective, going into the comment, you know, it is about leading obligation to safety through words and actions. I mean, if you can't communicate those effectively, and receive the feedback and questioning of people to understand what you mean by that, how on earth are you going to sort of gain that alignment and understanding of what we're all trying to achieve? I think looking at some of the other things, because, you know, what's really important, this doesn't sit at the management level. This has to sit at the C-suite. This has to sit with the CEO. This is why our safety leadership charter is about airline CEOs signing up for this. And it's not a piece of shelf furniture that they can sign and then walk off, because actually, as we evolve a program, and it's great on our IATA program's website, you can see some of the examples where airlines have provided, where safety leadership has evolved their own safety culture to the benefit of the organization and improve safety performance of their organization, in this case, an airline. So, you know, there is a lot of you know, leading from the top, but actually that leading from the top, and I think I've said this on a previous webinar, needs to be understood and permeated through the whole organization. And it needs to not end up where each layer of management interprets it slightly different. So by the time you get down to the frontline worker, in maybe maintenance and ground ops and flight ops, they all have a different narrative. And then they're sort of sitting in a room and thinking, well, for us, safety leadership means this, but actually people over here are saying it means something different. So, you know, it has to come from the top. And actually the CEO who asked me the question at the time that I was sort of president of BALPA was, how do I get all of my frontline workers to understand my commitment to safety without it being filtered, processed by other people within the organization, so that we end up with a completely different understanding after it's been sort of translated, interpreted and communicated 3 or 4 times. So that's why we've set out the principles. That's why we're looking to sort of get all of our airline CEOs to sign up for the same principles. But we need to be cognizant, as we've mentioned before, that actually wherever you are in the world, this will be interpreted. It has to be interpreted differently to fit into their own culture. Because if it sits there as make it so, then we're not going to get anywhere further forward. And I think actually comes back to something that Dorda reminded me of, is when I was flying, you know, the most rewarding thing, I think, is when you see a junior person on the ramp who has seen something that is unsafe. Maybe, you know, something has bumped the aircraft, and they've come up to the flight deck and they've said, knowing that their job could be at risk, but actually their primary driver is to report it and deal with the consequences afterwards. And to have somebody maybe just started a job come and saying, oh, you know, I've just you know, bumped the aircraft with the low loader, and for me to provide the feedback to sort of say, actually, that is probably the most useful bit of information I have received today, without apportioning blame to anybody, is how culture should be worked. And it absolutely starts at the top. So I think everything we're talking about is 100% safety leadership.
And I think this is where it's, like you say, it's about interpretation, how we make it relevant for people across the organization. And maybe Frida, maybe if I come to you and maybe you can say a little bit about at Icelandair how you, particularly in the busiest period of the year with lots going on, how do you help your teams kind of live that as a reality every day, so that when something happens, there's not a manager under pressure suddenly kind of taking a different approach. How does that work? It's quite a tough thing to do in reality, isn't it?
For sure, when you have a lot of staff with many managers to get the right message through all the filters, it can be a challenge. On our side, we've now tried the approach for the last few months that our accountable manager, she sends out a message to all staff weekly, going over what has happened during the past week, ongoing issues, and also underlining the importance of safety and right practices. So not only focusing on the business elements, on-time performance or whatever, that can often kind of contradict the safety message, even if that's not the purpose. But we have to be sure that the operational message is also met with our safety message. And this also helps, I believe, the staff knowing what is going on, that everyone knows what has been going on over the past week, in what direction we're going, what are the main projects, the timelines. Okay, we are now, for example, introducing Airbus for the first time into our company, and we're expecting this next winter, having been historically a Boeing company for the past decades. This is a huge change, and this change management procedures, of course, extremely important for every single staff member, going from to just share the status of the mechanic seminars, the training that has started, and how we are seeing that process, to the pilots who have started going through training, through cabin crew, through ground, through the dispatchers, that everyone gets the same message, everyone knows the status, what direction we're going. And by having this one channel from the accountable manager, there's no question on the interpretation. It's just there's a single source of truth, if you like, for this message, and it's accessible to all staff, and it's actually highly well received now. It's a change we started doing maybe 6-7 months ago, to have this really weekly message highlighting also safety. But it has to be we have three core values at Icelandair. It's simplicity, responsibility, and passion. And this has to go through our whole operation as well. That the message is simple, that people are still responsible for their actions, and want to keep the responsibility, because I think you're willing to do, you put an extra effort also if you are responsible for what you're doing, but to keep it fun and keep the passion there. That's our method, and probably not the only one doing it like this, but that's the core value of everything. Complications are never good. They distort the message. They make everything more complicated, more difficult, can start becoming a threat to a safety culture. And we want people to know what is expected from them, and to have fun while doing it. Keep the passion.
And it's really interesting, and I love hearing different organizational values. And something you were saying, Mark, is it's in, you can have a leadership charter at an organization like IATA, EASA, all sorts of organizations can create ideas, but it's how you make that your own as an organization is a really interesting thing. You reminded me there, Frida, when you were talking about my favorite book. One of my favorite organizational culture books is a book called The Culture Code by a guy called Daniel Coyle, and it particularly there it talks about kind of 3 key parts, which is then establishing purpose, so that everybody in the organization knows clearly what's expected of them, and then building safety and belonging and being part of something, and then living the values of the organization, and that kind of permeating through everything. And as we start, maybe I come around for one kind of second or another pass of just more detailed questions then is in terms of then in the busy period, if we look specifically ahead to this summer, is knowing things are going to get really busy and crazy. There's going to be lots of specific challenges to face during the summer. Daughter, if I come to you first, have you identified maybe some specific challenges that you know you're going to face over the next 3, 4, 5 months? And then as a leadership team in the airport, what kind of actions and things are you doing at a practical level to turn these kind of leadership management type theories into reality for frontline workers and for the operation? Sorry, it's quite a complicated question there.
Well, I'm coming back to one of the topics that we've touched upon already, that everyone knows their responsibility. I think this is really key, because there is a risk if we just assume that everyone knows exactly what is expected from them. And when you add complexity like busy summer traffic or many actors having to find their way through busy airports, it's really down to learning from the different occurrences that really take place every day, and having the ability to transfer that learning into preventing that the risk exists or remains looking forward. So the ability to adapt to the situation, not knowing whether it being severe weather that will hit our airport in the next few days, or it being challenges with some of the infrastructure, some of the critical equipment and breaking down or whatever, that we have the same ability to evaluate and assess what is this about, what is the root cause, and to have the ability to learn. It involves that we have the right culture where we dare to talk about what is actually going on and not hiding anything, below the carpet. So I think it's coming back to the framework that we must make sure that we have, that makes us resilient to any situation that we will face in busy times. And here it's important that we communicate in a very easy and very simple way that people can relate to. They don't get confused. What do we mean? It must be very easy to understand. And doing this, it's important that we keep promoting the same messages, different stories, highlighting the same topics that we need to prioritize.
Yeah, it's really interesting what you referred to there about the learning and being transparent about, particularly a staff member when they report something and something happens, is that it's something that's not hidden. It's, well, this is what happened. This is what we learned from it. This is how something might have changed. And I saw it's interesting. The top voted question, one part of it is talking about safe environments. What kind of successful initiatives are there to increase successful safety reporting? And I think that's probably the biggest one I've ever seen. I've been involved in reporting for best part of 25 years now in different organizations. And every time I've seen reporting become successful and meet what it's there to do is when the organization's taken it as a learning opportunity and changed something, and staff have gone, oh my goodness, I've reported something and something's actually changed, and it encourages more people to do it, I guess.
If I may just add a comment to that,
Yeah.
As a safety leader, we really should look at how we respond to anything being reported to us, like Mark was touching upon, and also dare to give some feedback if what we see does not correspond with our just culture principles, because this is where we have the key for learning.
It's interesting. We talk about the concept here at EASA about the concept of leadership and managerial courage, and it's that, when you see something that isn't in line with your values, are you prepared to, as an organization, do you equip your staff to act then appropriately to correct things in the right way? And that in itself must be a huge challenge, I think. And Yogesh, maybe if I come to you now, is, again, you've got really diverse operation with lots of different locations. How do you do that? How are you looking ahead to the summer and kind of turning this into that reality, particularly of things like reporting and culture, how you get that culture out onto the front line, right, you know, with the staff on the ramp, and really turn it into a reality so they can feel safe to report things and they know that that's the way your organization is?
I think well, there's two things. And you're right. You know, airports are busy places. Airlines are faced with pressure to minimize turnaround times, to maintain schedule adherence, and optimize their fleet. But that could generate people rushing, and we all know when you rush, the likelihood of making errors is higher. So creating a safe environment, what does that actually mean? It means, for us, we have a bit of a slogan that we resonate across all our operations. We say we rather take a delay than a Cat A. A Cat A for us is a serious incident. And that message comes, as Mark said, it has to start from the top. We actually recorded from our CEO to all our EVPs and SVPs, and we repeat that message. This week is also our Morse week, our safety week as well.
Okay, cool.
It really pleases me when I go and visit operations, I see that being lived, where the manager stands up and says, I'd rather talk to the airline and explain the delay than having an aircraft that is damaged. So that gives empowerment and encouragement to people to, you know, slow down. Unscheduled events do happen. You know, aircraft sometimes does come in late or early. And it's about having effective planning and what we can do to try and minimize that. But the key here is to create that safe space for our people. The other thing is we've diagnosed and then redesigned is how we want people to report. And we've created a program. It's called frictionless reporting, and it allows people to report. They can use their phone, or they could use go online, and it basically allows people to report what happened, where it happened, and they can upload a photograph. The beauty of this is it has a feature where you can ask for feedback, or if you don't want to leave your contact details and you want to remain anonymous, you can do so. But for us, is to capture all that, look at what we're learning from it, and then take some tangible actions. So you said, we did, and we feed that back into our employee group, so they see actually that feedback is being listened to, and where we can take some action. So to try and summarize it, we rather take a delay than a Cat A, and we simplified the way how people want to report.
And I think, thanks for that insight. I think it's so interesting to hear all these different approaches, and particularly it's that simplicity of message seems to be such a big thing. Is if you leave staff with a million things to think about, then they've forgotten everything, rather than saying, remember this and that, that's it, go, off you go, do your job, we're here to support you. It kind of really changes things. Mark, maybe if I come to you next, in terms of the organisations, you know, all your members, what kind of initiatives have you seen? And I know you go to different events and you talk to lots of different people across the industry. What kind of things do you see from people, kind of in terms of solutions to turn this nice kind of management leadership discussion into a lived reality at the front line?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I guess one of the leadership things or parts that we play is that, fortunately, we're not an airline. We don't physically own any risks. So the need is for others to share their risks with us and feel that they can do so with confidence, so that actually not only do we have a little bit of more understanding around a particular issue, but in our leadership role, it's about promulgating it out to the whole of the industry. So, you know, we've recently had a safety issue review meeting in Brussels, kindly hosted by Eurocontrol, where we actually get as many aviation stakeholders as we can in the room, and under sort of Chatham House rules, allow people to share in confidence the issues that they've come up against. And that's really important for us, because with that information, with the new safety issue hub that we have on the website, is that we're collating all of these safety risks, okay, with any mitigations that are out there. We're not proud if EASA have provided an excellent paper, or Airbus, or whoever has provided an excellent paper on how to address a specific risk, and this is something that can be shared and understood by others. We'll collate it all together, and you know, it's an open source platform where anybody can access. We do provide a number, again, of from a leadership perspective, a number of generic safety risk assessments. So please, just like the Safety Leadership Charter, we're not expecting you to cut and paste into your own systems or procedures. We're looking at you to take this away and see what specifically applies to you. So for us, our safety issue hub is where we're trying to be that general repository of all of the intelligence that we gather from around the world, okay, and allow it to be accessible to all. Above and beyond that, we have our Safety Connect platform, which at the moment is only available to the airlines, but we're looking to sort of see how we can roll that out later this year, where actually what we have found over the years is that if we have a safety issue review meeting, or if we have one of our governance meetings, I can probably count on my sort of hands and feet the airlines who will be attending regularly. And so, you know, what we find is that when we have a safety issue review meeting, we'll have those people who maybe don't feel comfortable with some very well-spoken individuals who work for very large airlines, who have very, very complex and comprehensive systems to manage their risks. They don't feel comfortable to sort of put their hand up and ask a question. So through our Safety Connect platform, what we're looking to do is allow that peer-to-peer conversation without any fear about anybody judging you. And that's working really, really well. So you can have somebody who has, you know, 500 aircraft in their fleet and has multiple bases, you know, speaking to somebody who is a small regional operator with maybe half a dozen ATRs, but they're still having to deal with the same safety issues and still having to deal with the same safety risks. So it's about ensuring that we're sort of coaching ourselves, okay, and bringing everybody up, raising that bar or lowering that floor, so that everybody sort of takes away a little bit more intelligence and information about the issues. And I'm just sort of looking on my other screen of a safety issue hub, and actually one of the things, I'm very seasonal for, I guess, Europe and building up operations to the summer, is the number of bird strikes we're seeing at the moment, and understanding, right, okay, so you know, there are in January alone, I'm reading, you know, 372 bird strikes reported within one of our data collection programs. So, you know, if that isn't sort of maybe a hint for whatever stakeholder to consider how this may affect their operation, whether it's an airport, you know, making sure that their bird clearing activities are spot on, whether it's an airline, sort of making sure that their pilots feel empowered to sort of line up at the runway and sort of say, actually, I'd like to sort of, I can see some birds down the far end, please can you bring your bird scaring activity out, rather than feeling, you know, compelled to just launch off and hope that everything goes well. Everybody feels more empowered. So we're really trying to collect this knowledge, the collective knowledge of the industry, and presenting it in a format that everybody can assimilate and hopefully, as I say, improve safety across the board.
Thanks for that. And actually, it's really interesting you talk about the Safety Issue Hub, and that's the thing I was saying earlier about the topic we're going to have an article on in our next magazine, is to share that with the people that read our magazine. But actually, I think, in fact, it's interesting. One of the questions we had, I just pulled it up to the list, is about establishing a safety information bank to increase information sharing. I think for the most part, this is starting to exist, and although there's not one safety information bank, effectively there are lots of them, and particularly the work with Mark and IATA and EASA, we connect a lot. Other big regulators around the world, the Flight Safety Foundation, the connections are happening, and then also with different associations, with ACI on the airport side. I know, Yogesh, there's I forget the name, the ground handling organisation that you work with, the new association that's involved.
It's the Airport Services Association.
That's it, yeah. And so the collaborations are happening between organisations like that. As you said, the Airport Services Association is now coordinating more on the ground handling side, particularly as well. And that by working together, there are kind of also information banks in different places. But I think, and maybe this might be an interesting question to ask particularly the three from the operational organisations, is we've always worked on the theory that as operational organisations, the last thing you need is your staff getting information directly from us. We're there to help provide you information that you can use in your organisations, but it's for you to set the information in context for your staff. I think, would you agree with that? And does that make sense to you?
On my side, I think yes and no.
Okay, interesting.
It's when it comes more to operational procedures and so on, I think it's very important for the operator or for Icelandair itself to transform the message in the right way. But I think some issues are more globally, applicable to the whole community, and this is maybe a role for EASA to raise the flag and highlight those issues that are maybe more cross-domain or so on. So yeah, the answer is yes and no.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so, and that's kind of what we're trying to do, is talk about the issues and show here are the relevant ones, and then provide the right level of detail. It's something we've been trying to get the balance right, and I know a lot of people particularly message me on LinkedIn when we go too far, and similarly when we're not talking about the right topics. That's good to know as well, and part of the learning and the feedback mechanism in the system. I'm going to start going through. We've got quite a few interesting questions now, so we'll go through some of them now. So we've got one from Miguel talking about safe environments. Smartphones can be a huge source of distractions on the ramp, in the cockpit, in the hangar. Solutions and best practices. Maybe as an example, how do you, maybe Daughter or Yogesh, on the ramp particularly, if you've got, how do you deal with challenges like that? Do you provide guidance for your staff, and what happens when you see people doing things outside what they're expected to do? How do you tackle that? Maybe Daughter first.
So certainly it is a dilemma, because the small computer that we all equip ourselves with is really useful during operations. As an airport, we have an airport community app, and we provide the staff a lot of nice information that they can access using that tool. That being said, of course, we need them to not pay attention to their iPhone or whatever whilst performing an important task, like, for instance, driving. So what we do to prevent this from happening is we work with safety promotion campaigns, and our safety ambassadors that I was talking about earlier on, they would definitely also act as role models here, not only by their own behavior, but they would also care to stop a colleague also from a different company if they see something that is not safe in the behavior. They would be expected to act immediately on this. And this is about rampmanship, that if we see something, we do something about it. Of course, down the road, if it comes to an unsafe situation, well, then we're on the other end of the scale, and we would have to remind our staff members about the restrictions or the rules that apply. Of course, this comes with training, we should expect our workers to know the rules to be able to act safely.
And do you train staff in, in terms of how to intervene if there's a situation as part of the rampmanship side of things?
Well, it's definitely it's part of the mandatory apron safety training that we provide for all people holding the airport passes. That they will go through this training that talk a lot about the expected safety behavior, and this includes how to intervene if something unsafe is being observed.
That makes sense. And Yogesh, I guess you have similar type of process, do you?
Yeah, look, mobile phones is the norm. You know, we have them at home. I don't know anyone who doesn't have a mobile phone. So what we have to do is make sure we educate people. We keep reminding them of what's acceptable, what's unacceptable. Certainly, we don't want people operating mobile phones whilst driving. And as I guess the question is absolutely right, it's a huge distraction. So keep reminding people, keeping the messaging simple. But this week, as I said before, it's our safety week. Our theme for our safety week is if you see something, say something. So we encourage peer-to-peer, where others within the team should be having the confidence to be able to speak up and actually talk to it's okay to tell someone, actually, that's not safe, because that's not safe for you or for your colleagues or for our customers. So it's really, really important that we encourage people. You can have your mobile phone, but you cannot use it when you're operating equipment. So that messaging has to be clear. And as Daughter says, there's apps for everything. Even when you're looking within airport communities, you'll find there's apps where it helps people to locate where the gates are. Talks about if there's any disruptions in the airport or a particular thing, keeps that community in the loop. So long as they're not using it while they're driving or operating equipment, then we're okay with them having their mobile phone, but they cannot use it when they're operating equipment.
Yeah, I think that's I've heard some organisations who said, well, people can't have mobile phones anywhere at all, and you kind of almost, it goes beyond the realms of possible in the modern world. And like you say, there are lots of examples of where information can be pushed to people's phones and is useful. So yeah, I think, like you say, it's good to say these are the clear moments where we don't want you to use it, but kind of having practical guidance like that, I think, is really useful. So just
I think, John.
Yeah, sorry.
So I was just going to say, John, we have to look at Generation Z and
yeah. Oh, you paused. Oh. I think we lost Yogesh there mid-sentence. Let's see if he manages to come back in a second. We'll give it another couple of seconds, and if not, we'll come back to it in a minute. Oh. He was telling me earlier he always has problems with WebEx, and we were all pleased that he didn't have it.
Makes it.
There we go. Yogesh, we lost you for a second there.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was just saying we have to make the airport an attractive place. So putting roadblocks in where younger generation like to have information to their fingertips, stopping that, making it difficult for them to work and enjoy their job, doesn't really help the organization, doesn't really help the individual, and actually doesn't really help the airport community. So we have to embrace if we really want to make the airport an attractive place, we have to make it easier for people and have policies that are realistic, in tune with the times, and making sure that people can have a work-life balance.
And actually, it's interesting. I see Yogesh paused again for a second. So he's in Kenya, so in Nairobi, so the connection might be a bit more difficult. You're back in the room again. You paused again.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'll try one more time. I was just saying it's important, if you want to make the airport an attractive place, we have to make sure we have policies that are fit for purpose, in tune with the times, that will attract, the new talent into the airport community. So having, the new talent, Generation Z, want information to their fingertips, want apps, want a way to able to communicate not only to their colleagues but also to home. So we have to find a way and make sure we have policies that are fit for purpose.
Yeah, indeed, and it's interesting. So one of the comments we have in the chat there is somebody said, while organisations are creating their implementation of Part IS, not having the possibility of banning an uncontrolled digital medium of a phone or something is something that organisations should be able to do. And I'm sensing, in the same way we talk about the balance between safety and environment, I'm sensing with Part IS, in the rush to comply with Part IS, we might have some interesting new challenges that I hadn't necessarily overthought of in that regard. So that's kind of an interesting comment and is interesting.
But John, I'd like to just add something here, because I guess I have a little bit of a different perspective.
Yeah.
Whoever we bring into the industry, whether they're generation whatever or myself, there needs to be an expectation around what is acceptable and what's not. And the reason I say that is when I was flying, there seemed to be this view that it was, I got the weirdest look once when at 8,000 feet, I look over to my first officer who's playing Tetris. And when told to turn his phone off, actually was more surprised that I would tell him to turn his phone off, rather than the fact that it didn't fulfill any of our standard operating procedures within the airline. So I think, whoever we bring into the industry, although we want to try and ensure that the environment is as good and as appealing to whatever generation, there are certain things which I have to say are things that we cannot sort of move on. Safety is first, and actually if you shouldn't have a phone at a certain point, then you shouldn't have that. And I think it's like Daughter's point around driving a vehicle. I think we need to get that, we've got to get that pitch right.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're saying here. Yeah, is that we have to be clear about when are the moments people shouldn't do it, and embrace it in the right moments where it can help.
100%.
It's about finding that balance. And as I saw with the comment there that somebody wrote, there's the no mobile phones at all, is perhaps it's finding that balance on everything. It's kind of an interesting challenge. So I go to the next question here we've got. So somebody says, it looks like after the pandemic we had lots of people leave aviation. Business, the industry is not so attractive. It's too demanding, perhaps, in terms of responsibility and the challenges and the instability, perhaps, etc., against wages, the career opportunity. They said, is there something to change in the business models? But I guess at a more wider question, are there, at a leadership perspective, do we see already us changing post-pandemic as organizations, how we approach these types of things? In our organizations? Maybe Mark, you see that within IATA, or those kinds of conversations?
I mean, I love it. I love this conversation, because I think, I've heard people who say we need to attract people into the jobs as they currently are. And that will work for a while, but it's short-termism, I believe, because actually, we need to understand what the job of tomorrow for people who want a career in the industry is going to look like in the advances of technology. So we need to find this sort of hybrid position of, making it attractive for people to come into the industry now, but understanding how that's going to evolve as technology and enablers in technology take on various responsibilities in the future. I mean, from a pilot perspective, when I first started flying, it was about flying the aircraft and being able to navigate between A and B safely. But as we got GNSS come online, etc., the pitch now is more about managing the aircraft and the aircraft systems rather than flying them on a day-to-day basis. And the airlines actively encourage you to ensure that actually the autopilot is engaged most of the over time to ensure that actually the operation is as fuel efficient as possible and as safe as possible, because there isn't the distractions and the workload as high as it was when autopilots weren't as reliable. So we need to find the right mesh between pitching the job correctly as it currently stands, but future-proofing it, maybe through some sort of horizon scanning activity to provide a continuous narrative, because otherwise you'll bring people in, they'll do it for a few years and then go, okay, tick the box and look for something more challenging. And that's the sort of fluid employment market we have at the moment. So, you know, let's be dynamic about this. There are some really good jobs now. There will be some amazing jobs in aviation in the future, but we just need to sort of provide that roadmap and paint the right picture.
It's interesting you mentioned that, and we've been recently reframing one of our safety promotion tasks around from promoting careers to the next generation to dealing with future workforce challenges. And it's exactly that. One of the kind of key 3 pillars of that is effectively helping people establish interesting and engaging long-term career paths. And it's specifically using that word long-term, that we think beyond the next 2-3 years, you know, the industry potentially might change in all sorts of directions in the next 10-15 years. And how do we think ahead to that and evolve people's mindsets and our organizations for that as well? We've got quite a lot of questions, so I'll kind of run through a few of them a little bit more quickly. So somebody says safety leadership should be a mandatory training module, not box ticking exercise for joining a management position. For everyone aiming to manage something, maybe you also could avoid bringing training. Daughter, maybe I see you had your raising your hand there. How do you do that? How do you turn leadership training, particularly leadership training and safety training, into something that goes from being a yes, we've done it, look, to a we live this every day? Maybe we start with you.
Well, I was just agreeing to that very brave comment and very, very important comment, because we need to create a foundation for all of us to be able to perform properly. So if it's all about safety leadership, we need to understand what does that mean, what is expected from us, and also evaluate how do we perform our safety leadership. And this shouldn't just be the senior management or any other level. It should be across the entire industry, really. And it should come down to something very, very measurable. So what are our safety objectives, and what are our ambitions to progress, really? And if we don't progress, what do we do about it? We should have these discussions much more often than maybe today.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, and actually that's where something Mark and I have talked about particularly already, and the EPAS task that we're evolving has one of the other parts is the safety leadership. How do we create organizations people want to work for type thing? And I know there are a group of people as part of the Flight Safety Foundation did some work building some management training modules that organizations could use. I know, you know, that work's evolving, and hopefully there comes a time where, as that person says, EASA, there could be training and that could be available for anybody in any organization that could be recognized, as well as the specific training that people have in organizations. So that's an interesting one. All right, I'll move to the next one. Somebody says, in their maintenance environment, they've historically just had occurrence reporting. Us under SMS, we want hazard and near miss reporting. Engineers typically want to fix things, so reporting goes antithetic, is opposite to the culture. How can we promote the benefits of reporting? Yeah, we've talked a lot about the benefits of learning, and how do we do that? How do you balance, maybe Yogesh in your in Menzies, how do you do that? How do you find the balance between somebody finds something, you said about spot it and report it, how do you find the balance between spotting it and fixing it, spotting it and reporting it? What do you tell your staff in those kinds of example situations?
I think it's about helping people, fostering a culture of allowing people to report, and then it's for us to then to sift through that reporting to make sure, okay, what actions we can tangibly take. So feedback is really, really important. So if people keep giving you keep reporting hazards but nothing gets done, then your reporting culture takes a dive. And simplifying the reporting culture is really important. So, for example, within our ground handling community, we not only mandate we have to report within our own SMS. We know some of our customers also require that report to be fed into their system. And in some occasions, we also have to report into the airport system. So making it complex and duplicating the reporting drives reporting under. And so we have to find ways of how we can find a common taxonomy, making sure that when we report once, it then communicates and joins the dot with other organizations that also require that report. So simplifying it and making it easier for the end user is really important, and then giving positive feedback. I know in some locations, they actively encourage people to have a leaderboard. So I'm here in Nairobi, I can see there's a leaderboard of people who's reporting hazards, and it becomes a bit of a game for people to report. So gamifying it, making it easy, and then giving feedback is how we foster hazard reporting.
And I assume at an operational level, you encourage, if there's something needs to be resolved there and then, they resolve it, and then the report at you say report at the next opportunity. So when you know what happened and what you did, so because there's a learning in that as well, you did that and it worked, is a great learning of, or you did it and it didn't, but maybe what can we learn for next time type thing.
If I may add, John, I think we have such a good historic culture in aviation about the reporting, but it's not for granted that people take time after their duty often to sit down by the computer and write down their possible mistakes or near misses and so on. So, and we don't do this as like office staff. I forgot to attach the document and I have to go into a system and, draft a report, to make a stupid example. So we are expecting a lot from our staff, and we have to, as Yogesh said, appreciate it and really show your time after work, possibly, to draft this thing. It mattered to the company and we take it seriously and we want to improve following. So thank you very much. And this has to be the message throughout the whole organization.
And it's interesting, one of the next question we had in the line was to foster a just culture, transparency is key. We've talked quite a lot about that. Well, in terms of what's the best way to include a range of incident reports in staff training, I think that's a great way. If a staff member, if you're in training and it's something you reported is then being used in staff training, it's a great way to A, help learning, but B, to show the value of the reporting culture. Do you all, I guess you all do that. How do you choose those? Is there a particular approach you take, or just there's that, this is interesting, let's use this as an example? Do you do that?
On our side, if I start, we are closely working with our the unions of staff, especially for pilots, on defining a just culture and what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And I think this is the key, that it's agreed, it's presented to staff, and again, talking about what is the expectation, what is expected of staff, and then we have maybe more clear boundary of what is not acceptable. But it's a thin line, it's a very fragile line to step over, but it has to be clear boundaries. And this is the hard thing to do, because just for an example, a pilot for 20 years maybe has less tolerance than a new pilot, of course, coming in, about mistakes and about practices. And this is the difficulty in picking examples, because one example does not fit all the cases. But for us, it's a close cooperation with the unions to try to find an agreeable line for all.
Yeah, that makes sense. Fantastic. Thanks. So we've only got a couple of minutes left. So just to finish off, I was just going to come around each of you and ask you kind of one key, if you have one short piece of advice for safety leaders this summer, what would that be? Maybe Yogesh, we start with you and go in reverse order now.
Okay, thanks, John. And thank you for this opportunity as well. So if I was going to give one message, I would say investing in the well-being and training of our employees is just not a moral objective, but it has to be a strategic decision to safeguard not only your organization, but also the entire aviation community.
Fantastic. Thanks for that. I know exactly what you mean, and I think that's a great summary. Mark, next.
Food for thought, I guess. Doesn't matter how busy you are, whatever part of the organization, give yourself time to breathe and challenge yourself on what you think has gone well as those things that haven't.
Fantastic. Thanks very much. Frida, from your side?
Yeah, I'm very much on the same line. I would say appreciate the staff, appreciate the work, appreciate the success as well.
Fantastic. Thanks. And last but not least, Daughter.
So I would say care to share. So share what you are concerned about, but also what you are proud of. This allows us to learn the most.
I love that. What a great way to finish. I love that idea of sharing what you're proud of, and being positive about what we do in our industry and our organizations. I think actually I couldn't think of a better way to finish our safety week. So thanks for that, and thanks to all of you for a really great discussion. Hopefully it was great to see. Sorry we didn't get to all the questions, but we'll take away the ones, all of them, and use them to help us as we shape our promotion material. So thanks to our panelists. Thanks to the genuinely thousands of people who have joined us through these 8 sessions this week. It's been amazing to have so many people join us from all corners of the world. Huge thanks to all my EASA colleagues who've helped us planning all their specific sessions, and thanks to everybody who got involved. So thanks very much. Enjoy the rest of your day and have a safe summer. And I'll apologize now for all the continual promotion that we're going to be throwing in your directions. Thanks very much, everybody. Take care.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
John. Thanks all.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.